So, Kim Kardashian, who has long held the crown of being the queen of cultural appropriation, has gone from appropriating African hairstyles such as cornrows, significantly darkening her skin to resemble that of black women and women of colour, to getting BBLs done that have significantly increased the size of her buttocks to mimic that of black women, has gone from looking like this to this in a very short space of time. Now, you might be wondering what's wrong with the transformation, and I'll tell you what's wrong with the transformation. What we're seeing here is when people use black aesthetics and they culturally appropriate and use black people's appearances as costumes, and they get fed up of those costumes and they decide to disrobe themselves and, go back to their whiteness. Because when it comes to whiteness and white privilege, that's something that people can always fall back on, even when dabbling in other cultures, when it fits them, and when they choose to, dabble in that. So here we can see that, she's gone back to this California girl aesthetic. She's gone back to this Californian white woman aesthetic with, the blonde hair, the big, glamorized kind of Pamela Anderson look. She's really slimmed down her figure. So we're going back now to the idea of body shapes as, as fashion, which is really harmful. Obviously, she chose to embrace, a curvier look previously, and I don't agree with that either, because, body shapes should never be trends, especially not when you're appropriating, the body shape of another culture or, ethnic group who tend to have a different type of shape generally. Or even if it's just to become skinny, I think, body shape should never be that. But at the same time, here I'm talking about disrobing from, blackness, getting rid of it, disrobing it. She's kind of discarded it like a costume because it no longer maybe benefits her or interests her. I think that possibly following her divorce from a black man who happens to also be a rapper, she's now dating someone else, and it's no longer, it may no longer thrill her to appropriate herself in such a way. She is growing older now and she may have different interests, but like I said, black women cannot disrobe themselves. We cannot remove, our skin color. We can't, change who we are regardless of surgery. And we can't gain privileges that we aren't afforded. I think this is really dangerous. It shows why it's really important to call out cultural appropriation, because obviously the Kardashians have built $1 billion empire off of the image of black women, and appropriating black looks, and then not actually attributing black women or black culture to those looks. So for example, she's called, her braids, her Fulani braids, she called them Bo Derek braids in the past. She said that they were boxer braids. There's all sorts of gaslighting going on and co-opting black cultural aesthetics and then not actually attributing it to the black culture. And then now, as you can see, she's discarded the look completely in favour of that of a kind of white Californian Barbie doll, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with this look, but it's the fact that she's so, readily discarded and gotten rid of this kind of black cultural aesthetic, which, by the way, I don't agree with cultural appropriation. I think, people should be themselves. People can borrow from, different styles with respect, and then, also then giving a head nod to those cultures and actually saying where you got your inspiration from. That's absolutely fine. We live in a world full of all different types of people, and we can borrow from each other in different ways, but never in a way that harms or disrespects the culture of others. Black women have been chastised, discriminated against at work for wearing black cultural hairstyles, for wearing a naturally, afro hair and hair in braids, in a way that a white woman rolling into work in cane rows or cornrows wouldn't at all. And so to opt to wear that as a costume, as a black woman, I am not a costume. Please do not mimic my image, and then walk around knowing that you're not never going to get the same discrimination or treatment that I would in those same styles. So, like I said, people can borrow from different cultures, as long as it's respectful. Um, Within reason, maybe little styles here and there, but it's never a good look to, significantly darken your skin to get people wondering, what race you actually are when you are a white person. And so many people are discriminated against because of how they naturally look, being ethnic minorities, namely being a black woman. For you to then flounce in and, you know, be me one day and then the next day you want to get back to yourself or back to being a Californian Barbie girl. Um, you know, like I said, the cultural appropriation was never on to begin with. Hopefully this will, this, discourage other people from doing so. I mean, I don't really care if the kind of black cultural appropriation trend dies. Like, I really think it should. I think it's disrespectful to black women and it needs to end. So I think definitely, I think it's a shame that, we can clearly see now this is proof as to why this should never be a thing. She's now discarded, this image after years of having mimicked black women, billions of dollars later after having built, her businesses off of the backs of, the black women's cultural aesthetics, etc., without crediting them. And if you think about it, it's also their intellectual properties. However, um, this is the way the cookie crumbles. Now, I wanted to share this Time article that was written by Katie Lang. It's a brilliant article. I've just got an excerpt here that I wanted to read, and it kind of further adds to my point that I was making about just how harmful it is to, to partake in blackfishing. So the actual title is Keeping Up with the Kardashians is Ending, but their exploitation of black women's aesthetics continues. It's a vicious culture that valorizes curves on wealthy, racially ambiguous white women, but stigmatizes these traits on black women, one that plays into lifetime fascination with the aesthetics of blackness and an unwillingness to engage with the ugliness of anti-black racism at the same time. And it's in the Kardashian Jenner sisters' wholehearted embrace of this tension that their family has forever changed the way society thinks about bodies and beauty, forging the standards that have defined the past decade. Now, she makes a brilliant point here where she speaks about the, women that want to play into the aesthetics of blackness, but then aren't willing to engage with the ugliness of anti-black racism. Now, I will hand it to Kim Kardashian. She has definitely, through some of her legal work, started, to look into cases, I think, of black people who've had unfair trials, etc. So I don't think it would be fair to put that necessarily on her because she has begun to do that. But as for her sisters, as for other women who've built their careers in the media and on social media, cosplaying blackness. But yes, when it comes to, racial justice issues that are faced by particularly even black women, the same black women who they are co-opting and benefiting from financially, there's crickets, there's absolute silence, and they don't care about anti-black racism. All they care about is co-opting blackness and black aesthetics. So I think it's a really dangerous kind of malicious act. I think kind of blackfishing and taking on the traits of black women and kind of towing this racially ambiguous line. Women who do this, they know exactly what they're doing. It's for financial gain and profit, and they benefit from their white privilege, which will ensure that they are financially compensated for performing blackness, while actual black people have or suffer from quite the opposite effect, which is that they find themselves disenfranchised, they are less monetized, less supported, and less visible. So be really interesting to know what your thoughts are on Kim Kardashian doubling down on her, her image in terms of co-opting blackness. What do you think of it? Do you like her new image? Do you think it's, a good look for her? Do you feel like it's a good thing that she's moved away from Black cultural aesthetics? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe.